Hello, and welcome once again to the Veiled Oracle. My name is Nzinga. On this channel, we talk about African traditional spirituality with a focus on the Shona people of Southern Africa. As I welcome you to join me, sit with me for a while as we look to the wisdom of the ancients for solutions to some of our modern day problems. Remember, we are spirit having a human experience. In my previous uploads, I've gone to great lengths and spent quite some time just exploring the broader context in which African traditional spirituality is located. Today, however, we're going to go into some more specific detailing. What exactly is African traditional spirituality? Well, for starters, it refers to the belief systems of indigenous Africans regarding the nature of reality and the world of spirit. It must be made clear that this belief system is not generic to all Africans and must be understood in the context of tribe, language, or group specifics. We are using the term to denote the specifics within the broad Shona and Nguni ethnic groups. And within this context, it is recognized that the term Shona is a colonial concept that encapsulates specific groups like the Karanga, the Kalanga, Venda, Tonga, Zezuru, Manyika, Korekore, among others. And although there is a Nguni ethnic group surviving to this day, this grouping originally included the Zulu, Xhosa, Soto, Shangaan, Ndebele, among others. Now, much as we keep pointing out that Africans do not have a religion, there are those who insist on labeling our spirituality as a religion. And one must wonder why. Religion is alien to the indigenous Africans. The structures and processes of centralized prayer are alien to us. We have our ways of approaching the world of spirit and engaging with it that are peculiar to us and specific to our spiritual genetic makeup. We have our own symbolism based on our myths and theories of creation. Each person works closely with their midzimu yedzinza, meaning the ancestors of your clan lineage, which are in Zulu and Ndebele are called Amadlozi. These ancestor guides of the clan are our intercessors with Musiki Mwari, our god. In fact, each supplication to the ancestors is ended with the statement, carry our supplications to the Creator. It is possible that the insistence on calling our spiritual practices a religion is to enable a comparison of that which unfortunately cannot be compared. Because it is this very comparison with the monotheistic religions like Christianity and Islam being the benchmark, which has resulted in a lot of the misunderstandings of African traditional spirituality. Of interest to note is that quite a lot of the beliefs and practices are actually mirrored in the beliefs and practices of other spiritual disciplines throughout the world. So, how old exactly is African traditional spirituality, you might be wondering? The monotheistic modern religions that most of us are familiar with, and I specifically mention here Christianity and Islam, can be traced to around 2,000 years ago. In a later upload, I'm going to go into the details, particularly of Christianity and its origins, which will help you to understand when we say it is 2,000 years old. What are called the old religions, however, are at least 20,000 years old. African religion and other traditional religions like the Native American spirituality, and those of other native cultures, like the Aborigines in Australia and the Maoris in New Zealand, go as far back as the era of cave dwellers. These old religions date back to the Golden Age, when humans lived in harmony with all of nature and could communicate with animals. And most who are familiar with shamanic practices know that even today, it is still possible to communicate with animals, but most of us have lost the skill and the know-how and the connectedness to do so. Anyway, it is this understanding of our true origins that informs our concept of the totem. The concept of totems is common to these old ancient spiritual traditions. These are the origins of the consciousness of oneness that characterizes all these old religions. Today, there's a somewhat reluctant recognition of these spiritual traditions in what most call shamanism, in a disparaging way, meant to denote what they call a lack of objective structure. When the world religions are outlined, the beliefs of Africa are just swept away with one disparaging statement, dismissing them as shamanism based on superstition and ignorance. Yet the same superstition espoused by the monotheistic beliefs is accommodated and studied at length. There is a whole study discipline called angelology, which is a study of the world of spirit deities besides the creator, the source God. There is a whole discipline of studying saints. But when it comes to the African spiritual context, it is brushed away as a whole load of superstitious nonsense. Now, these ancient traditions are very holistic, and I want to introduce a concept here of what we call lunar knowledge. They are lunar knowledge based and therefore not easily subjected to scientific, rational analysis. African traditional spirituality and that of other ancient traditions has no founder, and this is one common theme weaving throughout these old religions. We have the great belief anchored on the concept of Ubuntu, Hunu. All the ancients say that they were taught the ways of worship by spirit beings, gods who came from the skies. These beings came in Jitundum Serem Sere. That's the Shona word for the craft that they came to earth in. And the word Chitundu Mserem Sere. The Shona word Chitundu speaks to something that is like a hill. Chitundu, something that is a dome. Mserem Sere speaks to something that goes in a secular way. So basically, what they are describing are flying crafts of gods that came from the skies, that were dome-shaped and moved around in a secular way. And the Zulus called them Abahambi Vayavutayo, meaning those who journey in burning light, those who move with blazing fire. Our spirituality is termed primordial, meaning it is connected to the very beginnings of humanity. Among the Congo and Dogon are the wise ones, who as recently as about 50 years ago were located by Hai Sanusi Vusamazulu Credo Mutwa. and their shamans, and he recorded that their shamans speak in the guttural sounds of pre-word man. Another example is the Dogon of Mali, who are on record for stating that their civilization was taught to them by beings from the stars, and they specifically locate the star Sirius, also known as the dog star by the ancient Egyptians. To date, the scientific world is still trying to discredit their knowledge of the dwarf star Sirius C, because it is supposed to be the preserve of Caucasians to have knowledge of star systems, especially given that the Dogon spoke of this star before modern telescopes picked it up. Now, this is what we mean by primordial knowledge. If this knowledge had been in the realm of the dominant religions, it would have been celebrated to no end as evidence of the word of God, of information from the spirit world. But when God speaks to native peoples, when beings in the spirit realm speak to native peoples, a different lens is used to discredit their knowledge or what they would have gained. And they're subjected to the kind of tests that their colleagues in the monotheistic religions are not subjected to. Now, this kind of primordial spirituality that we practice survived to this day because of its very primordial nature, in that all the peoples who carry these genes are always influenced by the spirits, regardless of the levels of modernity. And I call this our spiritual DNA. In Shona, it is referred to as remadzinza, meaning that which is passed down, that which is part of your lineage, which is passed down along the ancestral line. That which is handed, which is tied to your ancestors and your genealogy. And this is what some modern Pentecostal preachers have been trying to convince people, that it can be prayed away. It is like saying that if you speak perfect English and wear your hair straight, you may become white. Just as physically some things cannot be changed, likewise, we do have spiritual DNA, and it is what it is. We just have to understand it and develop ways of working with it to our benefit. I know there are a lot of issues around DNA and genealogy. If we start off from the understanding that we are spirit having a human experience, and modern science has proved that genetics have a lot to do with the physical makeup of our current bodies, our strengths, our weaknesses, immunities that have been built over time, weaknesses that we have, and sicknesses that we carry in our DNA. From the point of view of African spirituality, we say spiritually, we also carry DNA. We carry the DNA of our family lines, of our lineages. And at times, that DNA can be blessed or it can be corrupted. And we have particular measures that we take when a corruption has been identified in somebody's spiritual DNA. But back to what I was talking about, that the importance of understanding this is to come from a point of view of acknowledging the impact that it has on our spiritual value system and how our interaction with the world of spirit impacts our lives, and to develop ways of working with it that are to our benefit. We can learn something from nationalities like the Indians, who have Hindu as a religion that acknowledges numerous gods and goddesses, and they've held their heads up high and declared to the world that this is what they are. Unfortunately, due to the longer period of colonization, most Africans have been shamed to hide their true spiritual identity as involving ancestor spirit guides. Ancient Egyptians had a completely different knowledge system from modern people. This does not apply to telepathic communication as the ability to send messages to relatives by speaking to a tree, but a different way of seeing the universe. This system is as valid as ours today, and yet unthinkably different in approach. Modern knowledge is essentially fragmented. We have no essential knowledge system, meaning a way of seeing the universe as a whole and making sense of it. The lunar way of perception enables a heightened consciousness that seems to involve the proper use of our mental energy. And when we get the hang of it, living ceases to be such hard work. But otherwise, instead, a state of relaxed acceptance based on this deeper knowledge. There are other dimensions beyond length, breadth, and height. According to Credo Mutwa, whom I have referred to earlier on, the human being has 12 senses, and most of us have only grasped the 5, with the 6th still being in the exploratory phases. Modern knowledge is solar in nature, in that it operates with words and concepts, and it fragments the object of knowledge with the dissection and analysis to a point where it becomes removed from its context. Ancient lunar knowledge grasped things as a whole, and this is best illustrated through art and music. This mode of thought cannot be explained by the analytical concepts of language, and at best can be shown in myth and symbolism. The reason why modern humanity has failed to unravel the paradox of how the pyramids could have been constructed is that they were built by an ancient knowledge system that is fundamentally different from that of the modern human. And I dare say the pyramids can be considered lucky in that they are a physical presence that cannot be wished away or poo-pooed away. The more they are studied, the more questions they raise. And it is becoming slowly accepted that the cutting technology used to cut the stones to millimeter precision and the carrying equipment to carry such weights remain unparalleled in the so-called modern world. The people who built the pyramids can only have been otherworldly or influenced by beings of a much higher sophistication, which can only be otherworldly. Our spiritual beliefs and practices, however, have not been so fortunate because there is no monument to measure, no tangible, visible something left from the wisdom of our ancestors to prove that they did interact with otherworldly beings who communicate with us in what we now call spirit. Often, inventors are said to have been inspired, and we hardly stop to interrogate what that means. That whatever they created was something that was related to that which occurs in spirit, And meaning at that time or that phase of creation, they were in some kind of channeling mode. And I dare say, this is totally speculation on my part. Some of them may have been directly communicating with beings in the spirit world, but dared not share that information lest they be ridiculed. However, let me move on. This is the thing. According to modern scientists, beings from other worlds can only be accommodated if they taught us technological advancement. How about if they taught us building societies that thrive? How about if they taught us the laws of nature? The very same laws of nature that animals are attuned to, which is why they can sense when a natural disaster is coming, because they are tuned to their environment and can communicate and pick signals from the environment of pending disaster. But we don't consider that worthy of mention. The only things that are worthy of mention is tools and equipment and weapons of war. My apologies. I could not resist. Because when you look at our technological advancement, sometimes you wonder where it is taking us to. Anyway, I digress. The point I'm trying to communicate here is that our ancestors were taught spiritual advancement, and our ability to actively commune with these things from the spirit world, beings from the spirit world, is part of what they were taught, and how to establish harmony is a contribution to human evolution. The lunar knowledge we speak of is more of a sense of intuitive involvement in the universe. Humans only began to develop solar knowledge, that which can be written down and classified, as recently as 1250 BC. The difference between solar knowledge and lunar knowledge is the difference between insight and mere information. There is a particular author whose full citation, unfortunately, I cannot readily recall, but his name is Wilson. I'll see if I can put the full citation in the description box beneath. And he summarized it very beautifully, where he said, solar knowledge, which can be stored in encyclopedias, is extremely useful, but it is no real substitute for that intimate sense of the universe and of our involvement with it that was first developed by our remote star-gazing ancestors. Lunar knowledge is what enabled the African to develop spiritual concepts like that of Ubuntu, Uno, or Simunye, we are one. And everything has its time. And when the time comes for something, it will be. This was a conceptualization of cosmic time. This is meant to highlight to the ego and to the human mind that there are greater powers behind what we see, and sometimes human effort can be futile in changing the course of certain events. That sometimes despite your best efforts. There is a grander design to your life purpose that pulls you back and holds you still when that cosmic time has not yet come. We did not have modern watches, so our concept of time was more cosmic consciousness than chronological sequencing. Birth was celebrated, aging was gracefully accepted, and death was a welcome rest. Modern solar knowledge has led us to believe that there is a problem with this sequencing, with this cosmic sequencing of the life and death cycle. And we now have issues with the legitimacy and correctness of birth and birthing processes. And we now do ridiculous and dangerous things to resist age. And goodness knows what else we've done through our fear of death. Intuitive knowledge is an era or an area that solar-brained people dismiss as hogwash or mambo jumbo, but a form of knowledge that those who work with it just know to be real. I am reminded of Harry Potter in a scene where he accuses Malfoy of having been the one to give this girl a bewitched charm. And so he says, I know it's Malfoy. And Severus Snape says, is that so? And how, may I ask, do you know? And Harry Potter says, I just know. Of course, Severus Snape proceeds to take the mickey out of him and ridicule him for just knowing. But coming back to lunar knowledge, this is the thing. Harry Potter was right. And in that particular movie, he was proved to have been right. He just knew. And lunar knowledge is all about that knowingness. And particularly for spirit mediums, part of the initiation that we go through is to cultivate that knowingness and know when and how to tap into it. It is the basis, the foundation of doing what we call matare. When you go into sessions and you call on the ancestors, every rituals are not exactly the same. Matare are not exactly the same from one client to the other. The variations in between are informed by the knowingness of an initiated medium. You just know what to do. And you follow that knowingness with guaranteed results. A child, for instance, just knows when someone is not in integrity. They avoid people with negative energies and gravitate towards people with good hearts. A woman whose husband is cheating on her just knows, even though she may not be able to prove it with hard evidence. Intuitive people, scientists included, get a feeling about something, a hunch, and a flash of insight, which they then use to apply their left brain to understand it in a concrete manner. We have gone into a very interesting subject today, basically locating African traditional spirituality within solar knowledge and lunar knowledge within that dichotomy, and establishing that African traditional spirituality is a primordial spirituality that is rooted in the ancient myths of humans having been guided by beings from the stars, beings that are called different names by the Shona and the Zulu, but describing a similar phenomenon of a civilization that interacted with the ancestors and passed on to them a philosophy of Ubuntu Hunu, a philosophy of what it means to be human. Meaning that according to these beings, these entities that interacted with the ancestors, it was of absolute, essential, critical importance for them as human beings to have that basic understanding of what it meant to be a biped, to be a human being as opposed to the other animals that roamed the wilds. And one can surmise that the focus on humanness is a key instruction to the race of humans, to the humans that existed at that time. The focus on humanness was deemed to be of primal importance. And if we look at the world that we're living in right now, there are a lot of interactions, social issues that are grounded or that are based on a detachment from being human, that arise out of a loss of that basic tenet, that basic philosophy of being human. There are a lot of behaviors that we indulge in now that could be deemed of an animal nature. I hope in this segment you picked a few nuggets that can get you thinking about what it is from the wisdom of our ancestors that can help us with some of our modern day problems. On that note, this is Nzinga, the Veiled Oracle, signing off. Remember, you matter. If you think you don't, those that think they matter more than you will make decisions on the things that matter to you.